Constitutional Lawyer Bruce Fein. He's going to help put all of this in context for us. He mentioned 1998. You were one of those who worked with Congressman Bob Barr to actually draft articles of impeachment against President Clinton, so many years ago. So take us from the statement, we're going to start an inquiry, to when somebody actually starts drafting articles of impeachment and the lengthy process. I was reading the Nixon Judiciary Committee 7 months before they actually got to articles of impeachment. This is really kind of the first step, isn't it?
It's very preliminary, in part because based upon the Speaker's statement, we don't know whether she's really authorizing an inquiry beyond just this apparent something like quid pro quo, where Trump says, hey, I've got $400 million I can give to Ukraine as long as you use your investigative powers to harass my potential political opponents. That's all she spoke about at her press conference, which to me is somewhat stunning, because the other, at least plausible claims of impeachment, illegal wars not authorized by Congress, he spends money that's not been appropriated by Congress in violation of the Anti-Deficiency Act, he tells everybody within 100 miles of him you can't testify before Congress, and in Nixon's case, where I was also present, there was an article of impeachment because he refused one compliance with a subpoena. And you have all these failure to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. If he doesn't like a law, he just doesn't appoint anybody and execute them. Are all those to go by the wayside? The emoluments clause issues that raised in the courts all of the time, the refusal to hand over his taxes as required by a federal statute, all these things just seem to drift away. To me, they're far more institutionally problematic for the future of the country and the rule of law than this one instance here. Although whether it violated law, it's kind of in the gray area. I certainly wouldn't applaud it as an act of Queensberry rules in politics. But if this is the narrow focus, it really isn't going to go very far in my judgment.
High crimes and misdemeanors, that's a whole wide range of misconduct. You've got a laundry list there. How many, I mean, if you were to draft articles of impeachment, what are you looking at?
Well, I've already preliminary draft, there are 14 separate violations in my judgment. For example, the appointments clause. I mean, in my judgment, you can't have a national security advisor, it's not just Trump, who's not confirmed by the Senate. The national security advisor it's the second most powerful position in all of the executive. True enough, but it doesn't make it legal. Illegal wars have been going on too. It didn't make it legal. Many of the things that Nixon did and were charged were done by Lyndon Johnson and John Kennedy and his predecessors. We can't have a rule of law if because one president got away with it, then it basically raises the bar and any future president can emulate that violation.
This whistleblower wants to talk. We've heard that from Adam Schiff. How explosive is that testimony going to be? And can he remain this kind of quiet person in the, he's going to come out in the public, he or she. There's no way to avoid that, is there?
Well, we don't know. In the past, when some witnesses said they wanted to testify and Trump gave them an order, no, you can't do so, Donald McGahn, his former White House counsel, says, all right, I'm going to obey the president. Maybe because they want future favors from the president, might get some business. We don't know whether if he did testify in public, then there'd be some kind of retaliation, he'd be fired. I think he'd be a national hero and settle books. He wouldn't need a job after that. But surely Congress, under the Nixon precedent, has an absolute right to every person's testimony when it comes to an issue of presidential impeachment, including the testimony of the president himself. And another witness that's hanging out there is Rudy Giuliani. He's the one who was speaking to Ukrainian officials in Spain and said, of course I asked them to go ahead and investigate the Bidens. And he says, I only do things after I consult with my client. Who's his client? Mr. Trump. Now, how fast can this happen? We still have many, many unknowns. In my judgment, the whole thing is going to come to a long stall if the Congress, instead of just stating up front, if you violate our demand for testimony, you're impeached. That's the end. We're not waiting for a court. We are deciding. And that's what happened in the Nixon case. The current Congress just runs to court. It takes 2-3 years, and by that time, 2020 will have come, the whole thing will be moot. If they don't have the backbone to insist that they will decide whether a violation of their oversight powers is an impeachable offense, it'll just be delayed and dragged on forever, and we won't even hear from any of these witnesses because there'll be claims of privileged national security state secrets.
We've talked a little bit about Nixon. That impeachment proceeding occurred before Fox News. How does that complicate matters? I mean, we've got such a polarized society right now where some people are watching MSNBC, others watching Fox, luckily some watching us, but you hear what I'm saying.
Well, it was somewhat polarized even at that time because I lived through it. You remember in 1972, President Nixon won 49 out of 50 states, but he still was confronting a Democratic Congress. 49 out of 50. That looks like, hey, it's the unity behind the president, but the Congress remained Democratic. It's true, I think things have become more polarized than they were in the past, but ultimately I think when the impeachment proceedings of President Nixon began, there was only 19 or 18% in favor of impeachment. When it went public, on television, the American people themselves could make an assessment without any filters, without people like you or me or pundits there. They could see John Dean, John Mitchell, Ehrlichman, Haldeman, the whole cast of characters. Then that 19 went to like 72, and by the time the tapes were revealed after a Supreme Court decision, it was like 99%. Virtually nobody was in favor of the president who said, if I do it, it must be legal. And that is what will have to happen in this situation. Right now, you do not have a majority who would be in favor of impeachment. It would be the duty of the House to permit the American people in public session to learn for themselves to move that barometer to a place where the vote will occur and find legitimacy.
Bruce Fein, always a delight talking to you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.